I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people living around?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
What's going on, everybody? Today we are going to make fun of roast and just have a good time on a late night session making fun of deep state goblin Ted Cruz, because he's gone under the radar for being awful recently because, I don't know, he cozies up to Trump. Sometimes Turning Point lets him speak, and for some reason people think he's some sort of like savior who's beating up the bad rhinos or whatever, but really Ted Cruz looks and acts like a literal goblin. So we need to roast him for the sake of the country. Watch that full clip and do a reaction, because a lot of different people feel different ways about that clip. And I'm going to say how I feel. So the best intro song in the world, obviously coming up right now. And I joke and say that because everybody says your intro song sucks and you should change it. But Dream Rare Podcast starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on Facebook? What's going on YouTube? What's going on Rumble? We're going to start it out. Give me a thumbs up in the chat. Thumbs up for the algorithm. I'm going to play the clip. Then I'm going to do a reaction to it because I was going to go to bed. I just showered, and Ted Cruz... Tucker Carlson posted a clip of talking to Ted Cruz on his show, and I found it really fascinating. Tucker does not like Ted Cruz, and yeah, let's just get into it. We'll watch the full clip, and then I'll do my reaction to it. Let's go.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people living around?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute.
It's not
okay.
even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay,
actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here, because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
All right, so a few things. First of all, there's a mixed review, I would say, of what people are saying. Some people are saying, well, Tucker's just doing a gotcha moment. Others are saying Ted Cruz is an idiot. Me personally, I'm saying Ted Cruz is a deep state goblin. I'll explain more later. The first part is about the population size. I know to some people it may seem like a gotcha moment, and they're like, well, who really knows the population size of certain countries? But I do side with Tucker on the fact that people like Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, and others, they've been pushing the deep state, neocon, Zionist, whatever you want to call it, foreign policy for decades. And the way they talk about Iran, I noticed this in the Republican Party, they talk about it as if it's this small country like the other countries that they do. And I'm not saying they can't win this war. They probably can to some extent. But, I looked it up. I remember when Andrew Klavan tweeted something from the Daily Wire. I believe it was along the lines of like he wanted to blow up Iran or something. It was some crazy tweet. I can't remember exactly what he said, but pretty much he wanted to wipe them off the map or something. And I was like, dang. So I looked it up, and there's tens, I think, like he said, over 90 million people. And I'm like, that's a crazy thing to tweet, that you just want to like wipe 90 plus million people off the map. And the way Ted Cruz and all these people talk about it, they're okay with destabilizing this regime. They're okay with probably replacing the leader with someone super gay, so the liberal gay world order can turn everybody into San Francisco. Because, God forbid there's a country out there that's not doing pride parades like Tel Aviv and San Francisco, they got to make it gayer. It's like they go to Ukraine, Ukraine gets gayer, Russia's not gay enough. It seems to be like a trend. All of Europe's falling apart, America's falling apart. We've been fighting wars in the Middle East for 20 years, yet our countries are falling apart. So like why anyone would believe this, I don't know. I understand why people would believe World War II, because like America was awesome, Europe was awesome. So it's like, yo, we got to go beat up that guy and then we're going to crush it. But then we ended up fighting with the communists who killed even more people, and nobody ever talked about that. Then we made the EU and the UN and all these little communist organizations. And now we look around and like the whole country's falling apart, Europe's falling apart. Like, why do people believe it now? I get why people believed it in World War II, but now you still believe that this world order has your best interest. Like, what proof do you have of any country, not just that we've invaded, but our own countries and our own cities? But anyway, it's like the way they talk about Iran, they just don't care. It's like 90 something million people is a lot of people to destabilize. It's a massive country. Obviously war is ugly and I'm not making any excuses for them, but the way that people who watch Fox News think about Iran, like they think it's just a bunch of people riding camels in a mountaintop, but it's like a civilized city of people that, it's a pretty nice city from what I've seen, but not that I want to go there. Long story short, it's a massive thing that we're starting a war with them. It would be like saying you wanted to start a war with China, but you were unaware of how many people were there. So I get why people think it's a gotcha moment, but I do agree with Tucker. And I think he's trying to point out the fact that so many of these politicians, because they're sucking up donor money and they're just doing what they're told, they're like, yeah, this is going to be no big deal. But it's like, do you even know how many people are there? Like, and Tucker, the way he was asking, it wasn't like, can you give me the exact number, like a ballpark? I could have given a ballpark, but I guarantee you if Ted Cruz would have threw out a number, it probably would have been so far off because he probably never had to think about this. And when you're someone like Ted Cruz, you don't really have to think about anything. You just have to do what you're told. Later in that interview, let me see, just making sure on YouTube and everything. I think everything's good, but hopefully give me a thumbs up if the audio's good, because someone said it wasn't, but I'm sure it's fine. When it comes to all the stuff he was saying, so Tucker had his way, and then Ted Cruz goes, well, do you not believe that, Iran tried to kill Donald Trump? And they said this after the second killer. So the first killer, they really didn't get down to that much. Like, I think his name was something Crooks, and he was like this weirdo lone wolf who literally shot Trump and killed some guy at a Trump rally. And they never really talked about him. But then there was a second guy that was sitting in a tree that they caught. And this guy had a lot of interviews. He was in Ukraine. He was a weirdo. He had Newsweek interviews, and he was helping Ukraine recruit former Taliban members to fight in Ukraine. And then when they busted this guy, all of a sudden the news started saying, or the deep state started saying, that guy was sent by Iran to kill Trump. And then they just started repeating this narrative. And I'm like, listen, I know Iran doesn't like America or Trump, and I'm not ever gonna like downplay, or you get what I'm saying. I'm in no way, shape, or form like an Iran sympathizer, but I'm not an idiot. Like if some white dude from America who's fighting and working with Ukraine tries to kill Trump, it seems like if anything, there's a connection between Ukraine and Trump. And Ukraine and Iran are not on the same side of the war. You understand what I'm saying? Russia is fighting Ukraine. Ukraine is with America. America's with Israel. Iran is with Russia and China. So why would somebody who is working in Ukraine be working for Iran? But that's what, Ted Cruz said. He goes, you probably don't even believe that story. Sorry, Ted Cruz, I don't believe it. I'm not saying that Iran wouldn't want to do that or they never could, but like that story literally just sounds like propaganda. And then Trump tweets out, he's like, if anything ever happens to me, we're going to war with Iran. I knew that we were screwed at that point, because I'm like, Trump is basically telling the deep state, hey, if you do anything to me, or if anyone does anything to me, whether it's a foreign country, enemy in the Democratic Party, whoever, it's like you have to avenge my death by doing the deep state neocon war that they've always wanted. And once Trump said that, I was like, okay, this is another Operation Warp Speed moment where Trump's just doing what the deep state tells him to do. And it's the same with Ted Cruz. So that was like his big comeback, is like, well, you don't even believe this story. Can you break down that story for me, Ted Cruz? Because why does the white guy from America who hated Trump, who had a Newsweek interview, who like was working in Ukraine to recruit Taliban members, explain to me the connection between him and Iran? Because maybe it's true, but I just find it very unlikely. And it just sounds like every time they want to start a war, which is what Tucker knows, they just blame that country. So You heard everything was Russia for like 5-6 years. Everything was Russia. Russia hacked the election. Russia hacked the power grid. Russia did this. Trump's working with Russia. Bernie Sanders bros are Russian. Trump grandmas watching Fox News are Russian. You got influenced by Russia on Facebook. Russia took over social media. Russia helped Trump win. Russia, Marsha. And then they start a war with Russia. They don't need to Russia anymore because they got their war with Russia. What's the next war in line? It's Iran. So now it's like Iran did this, Iran did that, Iran did this, Iran did that. I'm not saying they're doing nothing, but it's just so obvious. It's the same story on loop. So that was Ted Cruz's big gotcha moment. And then I forget exactly what they said after that. I think something along the lines of, Tucker said, if you really believe that, then you would have, actually struck them like months ago. You wouldn't have waited that long. Like if they really tried to kill Trump, don't you think Trump would have went after them immediately? Not like been like, no, I want to strike a deal with them. Why would Trump want to strike a deal with somebody who really tried to kill him? I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I don't believe it. Sorry, I'm kind of with Tucker. I feel like they kind of just were looking for some sort of story to just ramp up tension with Iran. With that being said, I want to show you why I don't like Ted Cruz among many reasons. I have a lot, but do I regret my vote? No, but I'll talk about it later. This is why I hate Ted Cruz. During COVID lockdowns, he was pushing vaccine and mask segregation, and I was like, what a pathetic weasel this guy is. All right. No one did this reporting, by the way. I've never seen a Republican media company point this out. For some reason, all Republican media just softballs Donald Trump. So your mom and your grandma, and if you are older, not that say you like him, but you get what I'm saying. It's like they're brainwashing people on Fox News to like Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz pushed a resolution to end mask mandates for vaccinated Americans. That's on the left. And on the right, Ted Cruz said it's time to end mask mandates for fully vaccinated Americans on airplanes because he got a vaccine, because Ted Cruz is a good boy, because he's a deep state goblin, because his face looks like he got hit by a shovel, because, he's such a loser. He's such a donor sucking sellout. He got his good boy vaccine, or claimed to. And then instead of standing up for all Americans during the COVID pandemic and being like, you know what, everybody should be allowed to act like a human being and stop getting harassed on an airplane, Ted Cruz comes up and he's like, who should take their masks off on an airplane? People like me who got vaccinated. So I was roasting Ted Cruz for 2 years, calling him a weasel, calling him a rat. And, I try to not be emotional or, I don't take things very harshly when I'm live. But I really did get annoyed during the lockdown, because during the lockdown, it's like, they're trying to make me into a slave. I can't go anywhere. I can't travel. I'm basically like stuck. And then people like Ted Cruz are fake opposition running around trying to help only vaccinated people. So, I'm being more gracious than I was then, but I really lost my cool, because it's like man to man. If I ever saw Ted Cruz, I'd look at him in the face. Maybe I'd call him a goblin. Maybe I'd be in a good mood and I wouldn't. But I'd be like, Ted Cruz, why do people like you? Ted Cruz is probably like, I don't know how tall Ted Cruz is, but he'll probably look like a little goblin next to me, and I'll look down at him like a goblin. I'll be like, why do men like you think it's okay to push vaccinated segregation resolutions? Like what even, how do you even think that that's okay? And the reason that, and I'm not trying to act like I'm such a tough guy, but the reason that politicians get away with this stuff is because everybody cheers them on. I'm not asking for anything wrong or terrible or illegal. Obviously, be legal, be peaceful, be reasonable. But if men actually stood up to other men, and when they saw him at like a meet, like if I ever saw Ted Cruz at Turning Point, or I ever crossed him in a back hallway, I would say this to him. But everybody else, they give him a stage, they cheer for him, they give him money. Ted Cruz thinks he's Ringo Starr of the Beatles at Turning Point because Charlie Kirk gives him a softball. Freaking Crowder smoking cigars with them. It's like not a single Republican media company pointed this stuff out, and nobody says anything. So they keep scamming us on loop. Somebody asked if I regret voting for Donald Trump. I don't, because if you even watch my campaign thing, I said he'll close the border, which he did. RFK will do some cool stuff, which he's starting to do. I don't know. It's like, that's really it. I was hoping for a few more things. I think Trump's underachieving, and I actually think he's not a good president. I could make the argument that Trump is actually worse than George Bush, because Trump locked the country down. Trump sold a vaccine. Trump picked 2 out of 3 horrible Supreme Court justices. Bush gave us Alito, and the other Bush gave us Clarence Thomas. So they even picked better Supreme Court judge. I don't like George Bush at all. I never trusted George Bush. I think he's a snake. But Trump is also a snake, but it's just like Joe Biden is horrible too. So no, I don't really regret it, but I always knew that this moment was going to come. It was going to be, either Joe Biden starts another war and screws our country over and leaves the border open, or you roll the dice with Trump and he'll close the border. But Trump is underachieving. I guess I had low expectations. He's doing even worse than I thought. And, I just don't think it would have been any different under Biden. And I will say this, people need to call this stuff out. Like, the reason that Ted Cruz gets away with this stuff is because nobody ever talks about it. They think he's great because he's on Fox News all the time. It's the same thing with Donald Trump. Like, people have created a cult and a religion around Trump. So he just gets away with this stuff. And everyone's like, oh, he's a hero. He's a king. And it's like, what are you talking about? So I'm really glad that Tucker Carlson, I'm going to only keep this under 30 minutes. I'm really glad that Tucker Carlson called out Ted Cruz. I think most of the people like Ted Cruz. They don't think for themselves. They don't have, when I watched Ted Cruz at Turning Point a couple years ago, he was like rehashing jokes he stole from other comedians or he stole from Twitter, saying like 5-year-old meme jokes that people post on Facebook. And like everyone was like laughing hysterically. He doesn't have an original bone in his body. He's not funny. He's not insightful. He's not smart. He says and does whatever other people tell him to say or do, or whatever's cool, or he'll piggyback off something else. Like, all these things he's saying about Iran, he doesn't know the population. He's regurgitating the deep state propaganda, which, then they just shame you into being like, oh, do you not agree with what the intel community's told you? It's like, well, the intel communities always lie. You finally got somebody into the intel community that's not a liar, Tulsi Gabbard, and now Trump doesn't listen to her. When Tulsi's like, yeah, they don't have a nuclear weapon, Trump's like, shut up, I think they do. Yeah, you think they do, Donald Trump, because you took $100 million from Miriam Adelson. You think they do, Donald Trump, because you took almost $500 million from the Adelson family last term. You think they do, Donald Trump, because you're a puppet. You think they do, Donald Trump, because you replaced Matt Gaetz with Pam Bondi so she could cover up the Epstein files. You think they do, Donald Trump, because you listen to Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro over Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard. I'm sure you think a lot of things. He didn't say they had one. He said, I think I have one. Yeah, I would think that too if I believed Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro. So, you vote for Donald Trump, you get John McCain. You vote for Joe Biden, you get the same thing. So it is what it is. But I do like that Tucker Carlson called him out. And this is why people like Ted Cruz don't really do interviews. And, I know that Tucker has his own style, and some people could have said that's a gotcha moment. And there's always like better ways, I guess, to do stuff for all of us. But I would say this, Ted Cruz and Republicans, usually they go on Democrat media and Republican media. So they go on Democrat media, and Democrat media is just stupid. And they're like, stupid, stupid, stupid. And Ted Cruz is like, I'm from Texas. And then he looks smart because it's like against the Democrat, Ted Cruz looks impressive. Then when you go to Republican media, most of the time they just softball Ted Cruz. They're like, tell us about the border. Tell us about Joe Biden. Tell us about Joe Biden. Like, nobody ever asked real questions. So this is the first time, like I said, I'm just going to bring this up on the screen again. During lockdowns, Ted Cruz was trying to segregate vaccinated and unvaccinated and give vaccinated people essentially more freedom by allowing them to take their masks off on airplanes, but he wasn't pushing to allow unvaccinated people to take their masks off on airplanes. He was pushing resolutions with and I forget her name, maybe Marsha Blackburn. They were pushing some resolution just for vaccinated people. That's what a pussy Ted Cruz is. That's what a total coward and a fraud he is, right? Not a single Republican media company called him out. So I'm calling him a goblin because I think he looks like one. He looks like his face got hit with a shovel. But besides the fact that he's ugly, he's just a horrible person. And I'm like at these Republican events and he's on stage and everyone's like, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, obviously I don't like the left and I do like going to networking events, but to watch a bunch of like Republicans cheering for Ted Cruz because Charlie Kirk sucks up the same donor money that he does. So they all hang out and play on the fence. I'm like, this is embarrassing. Like, this is the first time in 5 years I've seen anyone ask Ted Cruz a real question and he melted. I mean, I knew how many people were in Iran. I could have given you at least a ballpark within 10, 15 million. I knew it was between 80 and 100 million, before that, because I'd looked it up before. Because when, what's his name wanted to wipe it off the earth, Klavan posted that tweet, which was like a genocidal, psychotic tweet. But of course, people of Andrew Klavan's ethnicity are allowed to do that because they have hate speech laws in their favor, and they'll just call you an anti-Semite if you notice that they are total hypocrites and frauds. I noticed that too with the anti-Semitism hate speech laws that they're passing around the world. One of the anti-Semitism hate speech laws says that you're not allowed to say that the state of Israel is acting like Nazis, right? It's literally a law. In Argentina, a politician is going to court. She's actually like facing a criminal charge because she said Israel was acting like Nazis. In like Germany and other European countries, it could literally be a crime. I don't know the exact rules, but they don't have the First Amendment. So you can get charged with a crime for saying another country is acting like Nazis, right? America has passed those same hate speech laws, but they can't arrest you because we have the First Amendment. So they just try to weasel their way around the First Amendment and do whatever they can to enforce it, but they have trouble. But they passed that same international hate speech rule that says you can't say that Israel's Nazis. The reason I bring this up is because Mark Levin calls people Nazis all the time. Netanyahu says that he's going after the Nazis. Fox News says that this is like Trump beating Hitler. Like they're using all these Hitler and Nazi references, and they're allowed to exaggerate. They're allowed to lie. It's like if you're on the side of Israel, whether that's your ethnicity or not, if you're just representing the side of Zionism, you're allowed to exaggerate. You're allowed to call anybody that word, right? While you're passing hate speech laws to say that other people can't say that same thing against the country that you support, which is just anti-American in general, regardless of what stance you have. But, you know, these are the things that I'm talking about because I've noticed, and it's just like super, super annoying. But yeah, anyway, Ted Cruz, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'm going to try to leave this one pretty short. But I thought that he looked pretty stupid, and I don't think that he's really ever thought how many people were there, because they constantly just regime change different countries and do weirdo stuff that doesn't benefit anybody. And then, you know, they don't care what happens to there. And I'll just say this, when it comes to Iran, America, Israel, obviously I hope that like China doesn't get involved, but in general, we could probably win that war. I'm not saying we can't, but if we're not representing the moral side, and I'm not saying Iran is moral, that's not what I'm saying, but it's like, if we're not doing what's right, it's going to reflect. Like if we help destroy Iran further and it becomes a crappier country in 10 years than it is now and destabilized, if Europe stays destabilized, if America doesn't get fixed, like the proof's going to be in the pudding. So whether you agree or disagree with me on Iran or not, you know, when are we going to fix America? When is Europe going to heal itself? Because all of our allies seem to be falling apart, and every country we invade seems to be getting worse. So this idea that we're helping everybody else, like, oh, we're going to help a country of 90 plus million people, you know, we're going to do this to them and it's going to be better. Dude, they're risking destabilizing a massive, massive country. When Trump said leave Tehran, I don't know how many people are in Tehran. You know, I'm not sure the exact number, but if Iran has, you know, 90 plus million people in it, it's probably tens of millions. I don't know. Maybe I should look it up, but I'm not asking to overthrow them. I'm just saying out of concern, population size, let's see, 9.7 million people to 16 million people. Yeah. So, I mean, when you're like, hey, leave, you know, 16 million people, leave a city. It's like, I understand that they're at war, but if they destroy that city or destroy that country and have a refugee crisis of 90 million people, then what's going to happen? They'll probably, you know, Zionist media will probably say, oh, Europe should take it and America should take the refugees. And it's like, you know, this is all I'm going to say. I'm not a big fan of the Iranian regime by any means, but the more we destabilize, the more countries we ruin, the more refugees we create. What do we have to show for it? Like I said, during World War I and World War II, America still had like a lot of, I don't know, it's like, you're like, oh yeah, we're crushing, we're the best, we're the smartest, we have the best technology. Now you look at America and it's like, we're suffering. So it's hard to believe that we're doing this for everyone else's interest because it doesn't seem to be benefiting us at all. And in 2 years, 3 years, I don't think America is going to be great again. I love America, but it seems like it's on the decline. And I'm just curious when we're going to fix our own country instead of running around meddling in everybody else's. Let me know what you guys think. Appreciate you guys. I'm pretty tired and I don't know. I just want to go live real quick, so I don't have that much energy. God bless you.